WhiskyJason here, whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Germany. I often review rare and exotic whiskeys. Now this is neither. This is Dewar's, very big brand in the US. True Scotch, official 8 years. Portuguese smooth blended Scotch whiskey. So it should be aged, not official aged, 8 years, port cask finish. Now, John Dewar's and Son belongs basically to Bacardi. So everyone knows Bacardi. And it says here the Dewar's Cask series number 3. So doubled aged. Now this is 40%, as most whiskeys in this price class are. Over here in Europe, I'm going to pay between 20 and 25 euros, depending where I live. Spain seems to be cheaper for some reason. I've seen it there for under 15 euros, and here in Germany, often 20, 25. Now, there have been 5 of the 8-year-old cask series here from Dewar's. So number 1 was, guess what it was? Caribbean Smooth, a rum cask. Makes sense with Bacardi as your parent company. Number 2 was an illegal smooth. Illegal, it was a mezcal finished product. Why was it illegal? At the time they put it in the cask, the laws had not yet been passed by the Scotch Whisky Association that would allow mezcal tequila to be used to finish products. But as soon as the laws were passed, they were actually almost shipping it out the door on the same day. Almost. All right, so Number 3 is what we have here. Number 4 is what I'm going to talk about in one of my future videos. Japanese, it's Mitsunada. It's a special wood from Japan. It's Japanese oak. And number 5 was here then the mezcal. I'm sorry, not mezcal, Calvados. Calvados is basically apple cider. I'm very simplifying. Apple cider, apple wine type of distillate. Some people love it. I'm not a big fan of it. All right. So what happens in a blended Scotch? Now we have blended malt Scotch, and that would be from different distilleries. They're single malts blended together, and you have a blended malt Scotch. So a single malt, a malt whiskey is 100% malted barley made on a copper pot still in Scotland. Those are the Scottish rules. Everything else that's not made like that is a grain. So if you don't have a copper pot still, you have 100% malted barley, it's a grain. If you have a column still and you don't have 100% malted barley, it's a grain whiskey. Everything that's not 100% malted barley on a pot still is grain. And so what they did is they basically in Scotland take often for 90% of all Scotch whiskies sold worldwide are blended Scotch, are a mixture of grain whiskey predominantly with enough single malt, enough malt in there to make it taste yummy. And here Bacardi owns some very interesting, some very great distilleries in Scotland. Aberfeldy, Craigellachie, Altmore, to just name a few of which ones they have there. Now, often the ratio is between 80% of the grain, which is cheaper to make because it's continual distillation, and you don't have to actually do it in batches, and you're using products that are cheaper. Malted barley is fairly expensive. Wheat and corn are not. Maize, for those of us that don't know that. Those are cheap, cheaper at least. And so you can mix them and you can then put them in a second barrel after the first original maturation. And then the second barrel is going to be, in this case, a port barrel. And so that port barrel in the pores has some port still left in there. You refill it with whiskey, has a higher alcohol content, 40% in the bottle, 62.5% often in the cask. And it'll take out a little bit of that port, the flavor, the wood tannins, as well as the color. So it has a little red hue. Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to talk about one of my favorite whiskeys under 20 euros, Paddy. Every single time I'm in Ireland, I buy a Paddy. All right, so great product, wonderful thing. Almost cheap as dirt, one of the cheapest products over there, but yet I like the flavor profile. Now, let's just take this Paddy whiskey and let's try to make it as if it had a virtual finish in a port cask. How do you make a virtual finish in a port cask? Well, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pour myself a little bit of Paddy in my glass, about 1 ounce. And then I'm going to actually take one of my favorite drinks in the world, port. I have a 10-year-old port here. This is beautiful, tawny port. There are other products that are about the same. I paid 15 euros for this. You can get it for 10 euros if it's not an age-stated product. What I did is I just poured a little bit in this glass so I have better control over the amount. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put in about 3 drops. Well, it was like 8. All right, so I'm going to put some more whiskey in here to actually counteract my port pouring here. And I just made basically a cocktail. So I mixed port with whiskey from Ireland, and I created a cocktail. Now, when I was in Ireland many, many years ago, I was in one bar and I saw this old guy. He would actually order a patty and actually ask for them to put a teaspoon. He had a double patty, all right? Add a half a teaspoon, basically, of sherry. And then, or you could do port, or you could do rum, or you could do mezcal, or you could do calvados, or you could do a white wine or red wine or whatever. You're just mixing a little bit with the main whiskey to give it almost the exact same experience as a whiskey. Now, whiskeys cannot just add port like I did. That would not be considered whiskey anymore. It's a cocktail. But for our palate, for our experience, it's pretty darn near the same. So I had the bottle of port anyways. Didn't cost me anything. I have the bottle of Paddy. Almost 10 euros cheaper than this. What will taste better? Now, you can do this with a bourbon, you can do this with an Irish, you can do this with a Scotch, you could even do it with an expensive Japanese whiskey if you'd like. Not recommending it, but it's something you do at home. All right, so just figure out what you like. And sometimes you go, oh, that's great. And you can try to look for a bottle that's very equivalent, or just continue making your own for all I care. And I guess the rest of the world doesn't care either what you do behind your closed doors. So, now on the nose, I do get a little bit of sulfur. Sulfur is used to actually, they put a candle into a cask after it's been emptied before they transport it from, in this case, Portugal to Scotland. And this candle has a certain element of sulfur in it and has a sulfur oxide that actually fills the inside of the cask. They put the bung, close up the bung hole, and then send that cask with that sulfur oxide in there over to Scotland. Why? Because a cask can actually turn bad. If it's too hot, the port, 20% alcohol only, will actually start converting and changing into vinegar. And it has a very sour moment then. And if you've ever had the chance, I've smelled many casks in my life. Take out the bung, put your nose in the bung hole, and it should be this dark, rich flavor. But every once in a while, you just kind of go, okay, oh, first sulfur, yuck, and second, oh, no sulfur, but vinegar, oh, sour. Put them away. And many, many, many different places in Spain, in Germany, in Portugal, put that sulfur candle in there to ensure that the cask does not spoil on the way over to Scotland, because that's where the whiskey is. Scottish whiskey has to be bottled, aged, matured, and also distilled in Scotland. Single malt Scotch cannot leave the country, cannot leave Scotland without being in even a bottle. So just like port and sherry can't leave their regions without being in a bottle. Bourbon can. You can put a bourbon on tanker, send it over here after 1 year and 1 day in Kentucky, And it's Kentucky straight bourbon whiskey if it's been aged someplace else for the rest of the 4 years. Weird, weird laws we have in this world, don't we? Maybe there should be a law about bourbon being bottled in America as well. Okay, I'm getting very sidetracked here, I know. All right, so I get a tad bit of sulfur in here. But I do get a fruitiness, and I also get a tiny little whiff of a smokiness. Now, many Scotch distilleries have in the past used peat as an alternative fuel source. Now, if you ever watch moonshiners, you know they just put wood. They use wood to heat the stills. Normal. Now, imagine you don't have any wood, you don't have any forests, you don't have any trees. What do you use instead? You dig the dirt. It's like peat, and you can let it dry, and then you can use it to actually as a fuel source. Not the best fuel source. Remember, the Indians used those buffalo patties. Not the best fuel source, but it's a thing. And it has a lot of smoke that comes up out of it. Now, the history of Scotland is almost every single distillery stopped using peat as their main fuel source 120 years ago. That's when we started using coal, black coal. Much more of an energy density. It was even cheaper. And so they switched to coal. After World War II, most of the places switched either to natural gas or to a type of oil, like heating oil, to produce the energy they need to make the steam, to make the stills boil. And now we're in the process of actually changing all those distilleries, almost everything in Scotland, now to alternative regenerative energy sources. There could be wood pellets, there could be hydrogen, it could be here green electricity, it could be, there's a lot of different things at the moment they're trying out to see what works best. But hey, let's see what happens in the next 10 years or so. Every single distillery in Scotland should be as close as possible to CO2 neutrality as they can. And I think that's great. And don't forget, every single whiskey product is basically an agricultural product because the beginning of all the ingredients is grain. Could be malt, it could be barley, could be corn, could be wheat, could be rye. It's always a type of grain. And so we are drinking something made from nature. And the wood growing from the trees, beautiful, beautiful stuff. All right, so as a comparison, it's a little bit brighter and shinier. All right, let's try for 25 euros, you can't go wrong here. Cheers. As a teacher, I teach English over here in Germany. I've done this now for 20 some years. I always think in notes, grades, A, B, C, D, F. And A is, why haven't you bought it? This is the best stuff in the world. Don't give that note very often at all. B, buy it. It's a clear recommendation. C, you can buy it if you want to. It's not, don't steer away from it, but hey, it's average. D is, you don't need to buy it. And F, why was this stuff even made? I don't understand that. This is a solid C. This tastes good. It doesn't taste wow. It doesn't taste fantastic. It tastes good. It's good whiskey. The value for money, 20 some euros for this, is going to be actually in my book a C+. I can recommend this. This is something you can bring to a party. This is something you can gift someone. This is something you can have in your own bar, your own whiskey shelf, and you can pull this out. It has an age statement on it. 40%. It is finished. It is easy drinking and very, very, and it's good. It's not very, very good. It's good. It's more than acceptable, and it beats a whole lot of other stuff out there in the market. Now, to be honest, my Patty self-made little cocktail mix here with my little bit of 10-year-old port added here is better. Zero sulfur, all fruitiness of the port, plus the wonderful flavor profile of a very nice Irish whiskey, predominantly bourbon matured, tiny little bit of sherry in there. And now we added the port. That's good. That's something I can offer my friends. That's something I could just for myself pour in the evening and enjoy. Now, my question of the day is, you have $25, euros, pounds, whatever in your pocket, burning a hole, and you're going to buy one bottle of whiskey. What are you going to buy? Are you going to try to find here a Wild Turkey 101? I wouldn't disagree. Great product, great price, good stuff. Are you going to buy, at least over here in Europe still, and especially in Germany, are you going to buy Bushmills 10-year-old? It's amazing. We can get the 10-year-old Bushmills, 100% malted barley on a pot still, single malt from Ireland for 23 euros still today. All right. Are you going to go to Scotland? You're going to buy a Dewar's, or are you going to buy something else? Please tell me what you'd buy for your 2025 dollars, euros, pounds, and why would you buy it? Thank you very much for watching, liking, subscribing. All of my videos, I try to review and compare, and I try to add a special little bit of extra information so you understand more about whiskey each time you watch a video with Jason. Whiskey Jason here from Germany. Thank you for watching. See you real soon. Bye-bye.